Hi everyone, it's Krista. Today I felt guided to share another origin story of how I got started using my intuition, relying on myself, my inner being. And that began early on at the very beginning of being a parent. The first video about this, my story is in the link. It's in the link below, but it's also in the videos if you want to take a look at that. And so I began using my intuition to guide me in healing my children from chronic, debilitating health conditions and symptoms. So first with my son, and you'll see that as I mentioned, and then also with my daughter several years later. So as you may see in the other video, I already had some experience under my belt and success under my belt in following my own authority, my own inner being, my own intuition and instinct with my first child. So that wasn't, so this wasn't my first rodeo. I responded much faster. I got, I started my journey with my daughter much faster because this wasn't my first time. And so what happened was my daughter, so she was around 7 years old in first grade, and she started to get really sick. And she kept having these bouts of like a cold or flu, like sudden fevers, and just very weak, and her face was flushed, and she'd have headaches, and it just continued. She'd get better, and then it would come again and get better. And this was in the spring, and I'm sure you know where this is going for those following along. Summer flu that just didn't land for me. It didn't make any sense logically, nor did it make sense. It just didn't sit well with my gut at all. I kept going to the pediatrician, and I know I don't have to tell you what that is like. And I asked many, many times the questions you're supposed to ask, and many, many times about Lyme disease. And they continued to tell me no. And I think there were 5 or 6 doctors in that pediatrician office, and they all said the same thing, right? They have their militant, marching orders of, a template to share with their patients. And so they gave me the party line, and it was just what you'd expect. And I'm sure many of you out there have had this experience. So it kept getting worse and worse day by day. And I was again panicky and afraid, and also mad because, of what my oldest had gone through. And then, my daughter, we'd already cleaned house. My daughter was eating organic, whole foods. We were living, in this home that I had completely redone, greened the home, got rid of all the chemicals and toxins and pesticides. And so I just continued on my search. I just knew that there was something going on. I just didn't believe it. And I knew, as I mentioned in the first video, that I was an empath. I didn't know when I was younger, but then now, as I was a young mother, I knew that I was a sensitive person. I knew that I could feel just so intensely that it was a gift, and also something I needed to manage too, right? Being an empath, and so that people don't drain me. And I just was instinctively knew things. And so, from the very beginning as a child. So anyway, getting back to what happened. So I was, here in Ridgefield, in Connecticut at the time. And there was a friend of mine, Dr. Mara Sussman, who is a chiropractor, and she's many things. She's amazing. But she invited me to join this women's group that she started to host at her office. And so I thought, okay, that sounds really good. I'm going to go check that out. And so I went a couple times, and she had these guest speakers coming, and then one of them lit up for me, which was about Lyme disease. And so since that was kind of on my radar, I thought, okay, I'll go check that out. So I did, and there was a physician's assistant, PA, that was the guest speaker in this, very intimate, cottagey kind of office. And so she talked about how Lyme disease was this chronic hidden condition that the mainstream stream doctors don't understand or don't believe in, deny, that kind of thing. And but that there's a whole criteria of things that it can be. And so she gave us a questionnaire. She began talking to us about the symptoms. And I had full body chills, and I just sat there stunned, because as I circled almost every symptom and answered yes to risk factors for my daughter, and everything just started popping off in my head, for myself, for my son, for my husband, for my dog. I knew right then and there that this was the problem. And, like for many people, they get sad or very upset when they get a diagnosis, a devastating diagnosis. For me, I felt relief, and I felt like excited, because it gave me like power. It gave me information, like a breadcrumb to go on, because my intuition told me that I could do something about this. So very fortunate. But that was my response, and it was my response for my son as well. So I knew, and I just lit up inside, and said that this is really what was happening with my son as well. And it was like a missing piece. And so then we went to this doctor, and she got tested with the real testing, and she had a clinical diagnosis, and I can go into all the particulars, but it doesn't matter. And of course, she had Lyme disease and several co-infections. And so I didn't have time to be mad, but I was, and I just stayed the course. I knew what to do. I'd already laid down the roads with my son, and I just got to work. I learned all I could. I watched this documentary that still is relevant, and all the doctors are like young, the ones that founded everything and started everything, called Under Our Skin. It's a Lyme documentary, and so I just started building my community, reaching out, attending groups, and listening to people and interviews and videos. And we had the sleepy internet back then. This was 2007, so it wasn't like a big social media. And so I watched this movie, and something just amazing happened. I knew that I wanted to see those people. I wanted to see the very top people. And the other thing is, I knew that I was worthy to see those top people. Like, I didn't care. I wasn't thinking about cost and all of the other suffering and, scarcity and all that, which was all true to some extent, although we were very fortunate. I knew I wanted to see those doctors. And so, I'm also wanting to throw in a piece about worthiness here, because everything is about worthiness. Because the more worthy you feel, the more abundance you can allow in. And when abundance in money, in ideas, and in connections and resources and all kinds of things. And so I knew, even if I didn't feel it for myself, I knew my daughter was worthy. She was worthy of top shelf, the very best people, top of the pyramid. And so I just went after that. And I know not everybody is going to do that. Everybody should, all that stuff, but that's pretty much, that's what I did. And that was my intuition telling me that I need to go to those people. And she had a complicated case. And so, which I didn't know then, and which helped, because I went to the very best people. So, I did eventually get angry. She was diagnosed, she started a protocol, and I had a big anger moment when I went into the former pediatrician's office to ask for all the records. I wanted copies, and back then there wasn't, oh, here, let me just send this to you in a PDF and it takes a minute. It's several hours of somebody Xeroxing all of these medical records at the, standing at the giant machine. And so, and I was pissed, and I went in and I threw myself around. I yelled and screamed like one of those people. And I asked my records, and I said, it's ridiculous. This place is a joke. Whatever else I said, I was just a hot mess. But I'm here to tell you, I'm not embarrassed by my behavior. And I'm kind of proud of it, because we're allowed to be a hot mess. We're allowed to be mad. We're allowed to be upset by things, and it's safe to do that. And you have a right to be pissed and to do that kind of stuff. Yes, we don't want to hurt people. We don't want to this and that, but not at a cost to ourselves. We're used to being told that, especially as women, is to diffuse and to toe the line and to not make waves and all that. But I'm here to tell you that that's over, and that, when you have a right to feel this way. And this was a pivotal moment in my life and in my daughter's life, where she was just getting weaker and sicker every day and had missed months of school. And, so yeah, that's just what happens, right? And it's not just Lyme disease, it's anything, any kind of crisis that somebody has. And it doesn't have to be a health crisis, right? So anyway, so I was there, I was waiting for the records. I was making a scene. I was telling every parent in the waiting room, I was making these poor parents, these new parents, newly minted parents with their little infants on their laps, that this is Lyme disease, check for Lyme disease, don't go to these doctors, go to somebody else for it. It's the emperor's new clothes. Connecticut is a disaster. You need to move. All that stuff. And I said that we found out she has Lyme disease after her being sick this whole year. And now she's getting treatment and so on. And that my whole family has it. And all that kind of stuff. So, and then, so I kind of was there, and eventually a couple of the doctors had come out, but the doctor I had just seen the last time had come out, and she was a woman, and I looked at her and she recognized me. She knew who I was. And, I looked at her and I said, "Why didn't you tell me? I asked you and you knew, and you lied to me." And, I knew that she knew, and I knew she couldn't tell me. And she even teared up a little bit, that I could tell. And she said they have a protocol that they all have to agree to. And I can now look back and have tremendous detached compassion for her, believing she was doing her job, believing that she was doing the right thing, believing she was helping her children, believing she was helping her partners in her practice that she worked so hard to, medical school, and who knows what her story is, and bringing home the bacon to her family, and especially a female doctor in 2007, right? So, there you go. And so, but anyway, yeah, so that was kind of my big moment. And I stick by it, and I stick by my past self, and I love her for it. So I'm much more well-behaved now, just so you know, but kind of not really sometimes, it just depends. So anyway, so then I continued looking for doctors, these specialists, and I have stories about that, which I don't want to digress too much about it. But I continue to follow my authority, the love for my daughter, with discernment, careful evaluation, slowing down, sitting back, tuning in, evaluating, doing the work. And this is called now the informed intuition method, which is a method I kind of created a system of how I did it, and so that I could help others, such as you, maybe if you're interested. It's in this parent course module below. There's 4 modules, and it's free. It's a big course, but the first 4 are free, and one of them in there is called the informed intuition method. So that's what this is. And so I just kept following the light inside me, and I let the light guide the way as breadcrumbs. I didn't know what the outcome was. I didn't know if something would work. I didn't know anything. I just followed what felt right, what lit up in me, what made sense to me, to my mind, and to my intuition. And my heart, now I can look back and I just know that the love for my children were in the driver's seat, that I was heart-centered, and that's what guided me. And I stuck with that. And yes, I freaked out and everything, and I was in fear, just as my example of everything. So yeah, all that went on too. But when I was evaluating and sitting with these things, and I did have the gift of not being, not needing to work, and that I could fully focus on this full time. And that I'm very thankful for that. And not everybody has that. And so, but yeah, and I could go on and on about all of the fortunes that came my way for that. So, But anyway, so I found solutions, I found a community, I found recovery for both of my children, and then also myself eventually later. And I did this while, of course, it's not that I abandoned doctors and authorities. Of course, I used them. I looked for professionals everywhere. I went on planes, places, to talk to people, but I looked at them as an equal. That I was at the top of the pyramid, and that they were one of many people that were supposed to help me, but that I was in charge. I would, look at I would listen to what they had to say as professional people that have their expertise, and then I would decide if that made sense to me, and given all of the choices that I had of what was the next perfect step for me. So I know best, you know best, you are the best person for the job, to be in charge of your children, to be in charge of yourself. I'm sorry, you just are. So I'm the expert. And I used Western and mainstream medicine, pharmaceuticals along the way with holistic treatments and protocols. I was in a crisis at this moment where we just needed, the number one goal was to stop the progression, because my daughter was getting sicker and sicker every day, accumulating symptoms. And so that's what I did. So we used it all. We used all the arsenal of things. So here is where I, a little transition into the second part of the story, which is how I got into energy work and following my intuition, which started with homeopathy. So I started using homeopathy for my son, and then eventually my daughter and everybody else in the family, to do detox, to clear out heavy metals and pesticides and chemicals and pharmaceuticals and everything else that was going on from the world. And using, so I fell in love with it because it worked, and the expansion happened for me here. And so that was my tool that I learned and took on the field to start working with. So people who are watching this that are homeopathy people, I used constitutional homeopathy and allopathic, and I used pharmaceuticals, and I used herbs, and I used this and that, and greening my home and eating organic. And I had every doctor, I had these top doctors, like renowned pediatric homeopaths, top doctors, top Lyme people, tell me, judge me and tell me I was doing it wrong, telling me not to use it this way, telling me this and that I would ruin my daughter forever, and that these are harsh, horrible things. And everything I was doing was harsh, horrible, depending on who was, what perspective they were holding and what their licenses were, and who these people were. So, but I figured it out for myself, for us, like what worked for us. And I know I'm here to tell you that you know how to do this for you. So, and using these professionals again as people to talk to evaluate, and at a pace that's right for you, so that you get to decide. You don't hand over authority to anyone, because the power is within yourself to decide. And you know your children best, you know yourself best. So, let's see. All right, so moving on into the homeopathy, as we were healing and recovering her, it started where things really I just crossed over to a new level, which was one day, this was early on, we were on all these antibiotics, we were killing everything off, the bug killing phase, where just your body's just filled with toxins and cellular debris, and your body's fighting hard to kill everything off and reduce the load to a manageable, population, so that your immune system can finally function. And I was using these, I was working with a professional practitioner that did these vibrational medicine devices, these, homeopathic devices that emitted frequencies for healing. And so I've been using those to help my daughter. Those that had been working, had been reducing symptoms. And we had her run, a scan for all these microbes, all the different microbes. And then that same week, and I did that on purpose, we had an appointment. We had everything run on the scan, the homeopathic scan, what the energy was, the vibrational imprint of these microbes and so on, and deficiencies. And then we had her blood drawn, and for all at the Lyme doctor that we finally got to go in and see. And so I went to the mailbox when the kids were at school with the dog, and the blood panel came back. I opened the envelope right away. My heart was just pounding, and the results matched what this energetic device had said, as far as like what microbes my daughter had at what levels. Again, like the measurements were different. It was the blood panel has their measurements, and the device has theirs. And I couldn't believe it. I was just like, it was like Christmas morning. I was like, I can't believe it. I can actually use these devices. I can use this like non-invasive vibrational medicine to help my daughter and to help guide treatment, to tell us things, to help as like a diagnostic. And so it was wonderful because I had a Western and this homeopathic device tell me what was going on. And I just couldn't believe it. I started to shake. Like I just didn't know. I just was just shaking, and I looked down at my dog for assurance, because I was like, I can't believe it. This is something I can actually use, to heal. And, this again, we were in it, at that point when my daughter was really, really sick, and she was, getting worse every day. So this avatar rod device that's attached to the computer that has this library of frequencies, it had some chops. So I was sold. So that's my pinnacle story about how I got into this work, and how we brought my daughter into remission, and not managed remission, so to speak. I know there's lots of different ways to describe remission. But for us, it was no protocol, no supplements other than, magnesium and, just good food, and, for several years, at a time. And she's had relapses too, during different times. But, and also, my son remission, me remission, and so on. And I've had a relapse, actually a few years ago, but when my husband was diagnosed with cancer, I had it and during COVID, it was at the same time. And my Lyme started to come back. I could feel it. And it was after, and it was just kind of the mix of it all. So, but anyway, so back to my daughter, and back to 2007, Ridgefield, Connecticut. I was using all of this homeopathy, and I was learning all about it up until, my daughter would go to bed at around midnight. She was, just up a lot and didn't sleep well. And then I just started reading and, going to bed until 2 or 3 in the morning. And I was really inspired to go to homeopathy school because there weren't any homeopaths in my area. And I knew that I could do it myself. I can learn, and I can do it with success, because I had some success under my belt. For the homeopathy nerds out there, my daughter, her constitutional was Nat Mur 200C, and then my son was Calcarb 30C, and also Nat Carb 200C. And they made marked improvements on their constitutionals, and then we stopped the progression eventually through just these trial and error, hoping for signs to stop this progression. And so what happened was is I referred to the Hering's Law of Cure. And this is a fundamental, natural law of healing, a natural order of how the body heals. Hering's Law, Herings, Law of Cure. So you can look it up if you want. And basically, it's your body heals in reverse orders of symptoms. So the last symptom you've acquired, how people get sicker and sicker, you have more symptoms. So the last one, that gets better. And then, so it's reverse order, and then your body heals from the inside out. So inside first, your body protects those, vital organs first, and then, surfacey, and then top down. And so I was looking for that. That was my kind of, barometer, if you will. And so through trial and error and heavy duty antibiotics, I give credit to those, we're able to stop the progression. And I knew this day and it's just like yesterday, where I was sitting having my coffee on the couch, waiting for my kids to wake up, and because it was summer. And my daughter comes downstairs and, very sleepy in her pajamas, and comes and sits next to me, and we, in our routine, how are you? How'd you sleep? How are your symptoms? And I would start to go through the symptoms. And the last symptom that she had was finger pain. It started it kept going and spreading throughout her body and her arms and her joints and her hand, and all the way down to her fingers. And she said, Mommy, my finger pain is gone. Because I asked, and she didn't know, like at that time, like how scary it was, how sick she was. Because she was too little to really fully understand. And I couldn't believe it. I was so excited to hear that. It was almost like unbelievable. Like, you don't have that anymore, and she's like, no. And I was like, Romy, you're getting better. And so she started to reverse her symptoms, and she got, up day by day, a little bit better, ebb and flow, because that was the last symptom she experienced. And I tear up when I think of, of her and her little body, snuggled up on the couch. And my heart swelled with hope. It swelled with hope and optimism, because I was in my heart center, and in my heart center is where the power is. And in my heart center is where my intuition is. And it's where your intuition is too. So just coming from that love space, when we're not in fear and we're calm and we're in that love space, is where we can connect to our intuition. So I ended up using a lot of remedies to just reverse these symptoms, so that and also her constitutionals and her, all the things that we were doing, so that she, and the homeopathics helped her so that she could sleep, so that she can go to school, so that she can play soccer when we moved to Portland, or to take her beloved dance classes. She was very social, and so staying home was agonizing for her. And so I had to weigh every day. I had to weigh the social and emotional cost and physical cost of what we were doing. What for the highest and best good is what should we be doing today? Every day. So this is how I started to practice doing this. And you can do it too. Just practicing believing in yourself, practicing working with yourself, connecting with yourself, developing a language of like how you feel when you work with your intuition. Like for me, I had chills. Not everybody has chills, or a spark, or whatever it is, right? That you start figuring it out. And again, I have this course that has a structure to help you connect to your intuition if you're interested in that. So anyway, so I knew it was safe to dose my daughter, and that it felt right, and I just ignored what the doctors said, because I just knew that this was just vibrational medicine, and if it was the wrong thing, it would go away, if I dosed her wrong or something like that. So I crossed over, and I moved outside of the box of traditional, outside of the box of holistic, outside of the box of homeopathy and natural medicine. I was just kind of just winging it and just doing my own thing, and just choosing from my list of things that I knew were working for my daughter and for my son and for myself, and so on. And again, I didn't know that this is what I was doing or why. I just followed the love for my daughter and for my son, and eventually for myself. That took a while to love myself. And I wrote a book about that. So there you go. I sound so salesy on this, and that I don't mean that. I really wanted to, share my story, because I feel stories kind of really explain things the best. So, that's why I'm here, is to provide value for you and to help you along your way, because I know that you can do it, that you can. So anyway, so my daughter's symptoms were a moving target, so homeopathy was wonderful. to use. And I bought homeopathy kits, Helios and Washington homeopathic products. And then eventually she, like I said, she was able to go into remission because of kind of everything, and just day-to-day tinkering. Every day was different, basically of what we did. The foundations were there, which were healthy things, and just the foundational, like helping with the root cause and then helping with the symptoms. And that's how we did it. So, and then I did eventually go into homeopathy school, but that was before the chaos of Lyme disease. So I did have to pause that, but I had all my books and I used all of those, as I was exploring things. And eventually I'd like to get back to it. We moved to Portland, and then I, through another practitioner, one of the practitioners that does that energy balancing with the devices, I ended up working with her, and she recommended an energy balancing method called AccuNext. So that was one of the first ones that I learned and started to blend with using homeopathy in this like an allopathic way, and to energy test, an intuitive test for different remedies and different potencies. And that saved me a lot. Just within minutes, I could find a remedy versus, 2 hours of case taking. And it's not that I didn't understand what I was doing, in that like I knew what the remedies were for, and I did a lot of Materia Medica, and Bo Ricky is my go-to, and just to get in there and see, what they all are about. And then I was able to then narrow it down and test. And then I just had my kind of arsenal of different things that kind of basically worked for my daughter and for myself. And then I moved on to, for the homeopathy nerds out there, no-sodes, homeopathic no-sodes, and miasms and combination remedies. And then doing these energy balancing techniques, we cleared memories and inherited patterns and traumas and memory and emotions, and just did all kinds of like balancings of systems and organs and energies and chakras and everything. And I used it for myself. I used it, all through like, the intensity of this cancer diagnosis with my husband during COVID, and just the COVID stuff. I even used my own COVID no-sode that I made in my kitchen as a testing instrument as well for outbreaks and exposures. And then the last thing that I did, I continued to combine and learn new energy healing methods, is infopathy. So infopathy.com, infopathy.com, is an energy healing device. It's like a little pad. It looks like a coffee warmer that you can plug into your computer. There's a library of energetic frequencies, and you plug it in, and you can make your own water remedies from it. So I could go on and on about that, but I won't. But just because I'm running low on disk space on my phone. But you can take a look at it. It's amazing, and we now have entered an era of where we can have these energetic frequencies, healing frequencies, at our fingertips that we can use. And so it's quite amazing and exciting. I still, as that you have to do with homeopathics or anything that you research, even if it's a supplement or a food, is I do case taking. And so that's a special thing you do for homeopathy, where you just kind of lay everything out. I guess you do it as maybe any kind of medical professional, blah. And so, lay out the potencies and do the case taking. What's the, and just kind of narrow it down. I use the informed intuition method, which is what you would learn if you'd like to watch the free videos in my new parent course. And then I would energy test and then ask, what is the best one for this thing, for today, and so on. And, it gets much more, intricate than that in detail, but that's essentially what it is. And I collaborate, with my kids, and until they were able to just kind of do it on their own. So, and so that is pretty much it. I don't want to waste any more video time. But I'll just put it in the in the description about what I carry as a practitioner, as a mom practitioner, and what I carried when I was in the thick of it that I always had with me for emergencies. And so I'll do that because, yeah, I'm running low on disk space. I need a new phone, but that'll happen at some point. So thank you for being here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I do energy healing work. I'm an intuitive guide. I have 2 books as well, and that you can find it all on KristaRosen.com, and you can also email me too if you have any questions. So feel free to enjoy all of my videos, and all for now. And until next time.